Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into a region that for centuries was pretty much a blank spot on the map, just this massive isolated area.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it transforms into the absolute geographical, political, and economic heart of a continent. We're talking about Central-West Brazil, the Centro-Oeste.
It's one of the most incredible transformations, really. If you think about it, 70 years ago, the idea that this inland region, so far from the coast, would become the country's main economic engine and its political center. It was just unimaginable.
Exactly. So our mission today is to really get into that, to understand this amazing pivot. Because the Centro-Oeste is all about these huge immediate contrasts. You've got these three giant competing forces all right there next to each other.
You really do. You have this planned, modernist capital city. Then you have this colossal agricultural machine that's feeding the world.
And right next to that, the planet's largest tropical wetland.
And this deep dive is really about what happens when that kind of, engineered modernity, this belief that you can build anything anywhere, smashes right up against raw, powerful nature.
It's the story of modern Brazil, but in hyperspeed.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the political centerpiece, probably the most ambitious urban project of the 20th century. Brasília.
Oh, for sure. And it's so much more than just a capital. It's a monument, really. A physical monument to political ambition at a time when Brazil was trying to say, hey, we're a country of the future.
I mean, the sheer audacity of it. They decided to move the capital from Rio de Janeiro, glamorous, coastal, historic Rio, and just plop it down in the middle of this remote central plateau. They didn't just move a government, they built an entire capital city from absolute scratch.
And the speed is what's so critical here. This wasn't something that grew over decades.
No.
The core of the city was basically thrown up in the late 1950s.
Yeah.
The whole thing took just 4 years.
4 years.
It was a brutal political deadline. President Kubitschek wanted it done before his term ended.
That's not city planning. That's a fever dream brought to life. You had these two giants behind it, right? The architect, Oscar Niemeyer, with those famous curves.
Those sweeping concrete curves, yes. And then the urban planner, Lucio Costa, who laid out the whole city's structure.
And that structure is key. It wasn't just about looking cool. It was deeply political. The city plan, it's shaped like an airplane or a bird.
Right, symbolizing progress, flight, the future. But the design had a very specific social function, too.
How so? We always hear about the big government buildings, but what was it like to live there?
Well, look at the residential zones. They're organized into what are called superquadras, these self-contained superblocks.
Yeah.
And the idea was that each one would have everything, schools, shops, It was meant to create a kind of social equality where a high court judge and a government clerk might live in neighboring blocks.
A kind of modernist socialist ideal.
Exactly. But the dream clashed with reality almost immediately. Because it was built so fast and the materials were so expensive, only the elite government workers could actually afford to live in the planned city superquadras.
Ah, okay. So what about the thousands of construction workers, the candangos?
They couldn't live there. So what you got was this spontaneous, explosive growth of satellite cities all around the planned core.
Unplanned cities.
Completely unplanned. Places like Taguatinga and Celandia. So Brasília proper, the airplane, is the pristine administrative heart. But most of the actual population lives in these sprawling outer rings that just grew out of necessity.
That's a huge insight. The political dream of this perfect, seamless utopia was kind of fractured from day one.
It really was.
Mm.
And there's another political layer to the design. Think about traditional cities with their narrow streets, their public squares.
There are places where people gather, protest.
Precisely. They're built for social and political organizing. Brasília, with its massive sweeping avenues and its lack of street corners, actually makes it very difficult for large crowds to gather organically. The architecture itself sort of discourages mass protest.
So the design itself was a form of political control. Moving the capital inward wasn't just about geography. It was about changing the whole political style of the country.
Absolutely. It was a statement that Brazil's future was in its interior. And that intention, that drive to open up the Central West is the perfect bridge to what came next.
The economic engine.
The economic engine.
So if Brasília is the concrete political heart, we now have to look at the landscape around it, that endless flat horizon. Because that is, without a doubt, the economic engine of modern Brazil.
Right. We're moving from architectural planning to agricultural engineering. And the link is direct. The government built the infrastructure for Brasília, And that infrastructure then allowed businesses and, crucially, research institutions to start tackling the great challenge of the Cerrado.
And the Cerrado is this giant tropical savanna that covers the whole region. For centuries, people thought it was basically useless scrubland, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Worthless for farming. So how do you go from that to the Salero del Mundo, the barn of the world?
How did they do
This is the real aha moment. It was a scientific breakthrough. The soil in the Cerrado is naturally very acidic. It lacks nutrients. So the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, Embrapa, figured it out.
So it's a story about science.
It is entirely a story of science. Embrapa developed techniques to fix the soil chemistry, basically adding tons and tons of lime and phosphorus. Then they bred new varieties of crops, especially soy, that could thrive in that corrected tropical soil.
So it wasn't natural fertility at all. It was engineered fertility.
100%. This is what allows a state like Mato Grosso to become a global superpower in soy, corn, and beef.
Yeah.
Not just in Brazil, but on a global scale. The size of these farms is just, it's hard to even imagine.
And with that scale comes a massive problem, right? Got all this grain in the middle of a continent. How do you get it out?
And that is the Achilles heel of the whole operation. The transport network in Brazil, especially out there, is almost all roads. Trucks.
The soy roads.
The famous soy roads.
Yeah.
So you have these endless convoys of trucks trying to move millions of tons of grain to ports that are thousands of kilometers away.
Which means huge costs, huge delays. It eats into their profits.
It absolutely does. And the lack of efficient railways is a constant political battle in Brasília. So much of the debate is about paving and expanding these highways, which often had to cut right through sensitive ecosystems. That bottleneck defines the whole regional economy.
So the economic power is massive, but the struggle to move the product is what drives a lot of the politics. So how does all this new wealth, what does it look like culturally?
Well, that kind of rapid, enormous wealth, it doesn't stay quiet. It creates a whole new identity.
And that cultural product is Sertanejo music.
Yes, you could think of Sertanejo as Brazilian country music, but it's often not about struggling farmers. It's a celebration of success, of high-tech agribusiness, of this new, powerful rural elite.
And it's not some niche thing. It is the single most popular music genre in Brazil today. It dominates everything.
It absolutely does. And you see it in the whole agriboy culture, this lifestyle of big trucks, designer clothes, and this whole social scene built around the success of the agricultural sector.
Oh.
It's a really powerful reflection of the region's economic power spreading out across the whole country.
That's a fascinating chain. The engineered soil leads to the global exports, which creates this infrastructure problem, and it all has its own cultural soundtrack.
Right.
Okay, so let's completely switch gears here. We need to talk about the region's third defining feature, which is the perfect counterpoint to all the concrete and all the mechanized fields. We're talking about the true wild.
We're pivoting from engineered design to pure, overwhelming ecology. We're talking about the Pantanal.
The Pantanal is an ecological treasure. I mean, it really should be more famous than it is. It's the world's largest tropical wetland.
It is. And, the Amazon gets all the attention, and rightly so, but for actually seeing wildlife, the Pantanal is way better. It's a huge distinction for anyone who wants to visit.
So why is that? What's the key difference?
It's all about the landscape. The Amazon is dense jungle, a thick canopy. It's hard to spot anything.
Right.
The Pantanal is different. It's a vast, open savanna that floods every year. And during the dry season, the water pulls back, and all the animals concentrate around the rivers and ponds that are left.
So it basically becomes a natural safari.
Exactly. It's probably the best place in the entire Americas to see megafauna. You have huge populations of capybaras, caimans everywhere, giant river otters, and most famously, the highest concentration of jaguars in the world,
Yeah.
the onças pintadas.
And you've also got places like Bonito, which is this eco-tourism hub famous for its rivers. They're so incredibly clear, you can just float down them and see everything.
The biodiversity is just staggering. But this is where the whole story of the Centro-Oeste gets really complicated, because this priceless ecological zone sits right next to that massive agricultural expansion we were just talking about.
So the health of the Pantanal depends on the water flowing down from the highlands, which is exactly where all the soy fields are.
That's the tension. The Pantanal's whole cycle of flooding depends on the water quality from those lands. So when you have industrial agriculture upstream, using chemicals, clearing land, all that runoff flows directly into the wetland system.
And this isn't just an ecological issue, it's a huge political fight that plays out in Brasília.
It's the central conflict.
Yeah.
You have the powerful agricultural lobby in Congress, the Bancada Ruralista, pushing for policies that favor more production, more soy roads, more development.
Pushing against stricter environmental protections.
Often, yes. So, on one side, you have the engine of Brazil's economy, generating billions in exports. And on the other, you have this globally unique but incredibly fragile environmental jewel.
That's an incredible balancing act.
It is. The Centro-Oeste is both Brazil's greatest economic success story and the site of its biggest environmental challenge. You can't understand one without the other.
So let's bring this all together. What this means for you, listening, is that the Central West isn't a simple story. It's a study in these massive, intentional contrasts. You have the political vision frozen in the concrete curves of Brasília.
Then you have the economic power radiating from the engineered horizons of the soy fields, driving a whole national culture.
And finally, you have the wild, untamed waters of the Pantanal, holding this incredible biodiversity but living in this very precarious balance with everything next door.
Understanding the Centro-Oeste is it's so critical. It's where modern Brazil's wealth comes from, it's where its political power sits, and it's where the great struggle for a sustainable future is going to be won or lost. It's the nexus.
That tension is just everywhere.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to take away. The Centro-Oeste has already proven it can bend nature to its will. It engineered soil, built a capital from nothing. But as the world demands more sustainability, how will this incredibly powerful region balance these two identities? Will it keep pushing to be the barn of the world at all costs? Or will it find a way to pivot again to protect the priceless ecological value of the Pantanal? How it answers that question, that's going to shape South America for the next century.